Breonna Taylor was asleep when her front door was forced open. It was just after midnight on March 13, 2020, in Louisville, Kentucky. Breonna, a 26-year-old emergency medical technician, had worked long shifts caring for others. Friends described her as focused, compassionate, and hopeful about the future. That night, she was home with her boyfriend, Kenneth Walker. There was nothing unusual about the evening until it became unforgettable. Police officers executed a search warrant tied to a narcotics investigation connected to a former boyfriend of Breonna's. The target was not at her apartment. In fact, investigators would later confirm he was already in custody elsewhere. What happened next unfolded in seconds. Believing intruders were breaking in, Walker fired a single shot in self-defense. Officers returned fire. Breonna was struck multiple times. She died in her hallway. Within hours, confusion and grief replaced normal life. Her family struggled to understand how a woman with no criminal record could be killed in her own home during a police operation aimed at someone else. The case was initially reported as a tragic but justified police encounter. Few details were shared, but as more information surfaced, the story began to fracture. Questions emerged. Why Breonna's apartment? Why at night? Why was no one arrested? As the days passed, Breonna Taylor's name spread beyond Louisville. First quietly, then explosively. What began as a local tragedy was about to become a national reckoning. At the center of the case was the search warrant. Police said they announced themselves. Walker said he never heard it. Neighbors were divided. Body camera footage was limited. The facts were contested, and each version told a different story. Investigators confirmed that the warrant was tied to an ongoing drug case, but no drugs were found in Breonna's apartment. The suspect police were seeking did not live there and was miles away at the time of the raid. That revelation shifted public perception. Why had a no-knock warrant been approved? Why had the apartment been included? And why was the operation carried out after midnight? As Breonna's family pressed for answers, internal police reviews began. Officers involved were placed on administrative duty. The city released partial findings. Trust eroded. Then protests began. What started as calls for transparency grew into nationwide demonstrations. Breonna Taylor became a symbol, not just of one case, but of broader concerns about policing, accountability, and race in America. Her story joined others already in the public consciousness. But Breonna's case was different. She hadn't been stopped. She hadn't been arrested. She hadn't been outside. She was home. As weeks passed without charges, pressure intensified. March turned into April. April into May. Breonna's name appeared on signs, murals, and social media feeds. Celebrities demanded justice. Politicians made statements. Still, no one was arrested for her death. The city of Louisville faced growing unrest. Curfews were imposed. National Guard troops were deployed. Protesters asked a simple question: how could this happen with no accountability? The Attorney General of Kentucky announced an investigation. The FBI opened a civil rights probe. Every update was scrutinized. Behind the scenes, legal experts debated the complexities of the case, self-defense claims, warrant procedures, and use of force standards. To the public, it felt like justice was trapped behind technicalities. Breonna's mother, Tamika Palmer, spoke with quiet determination. She didn't call for chaos. She called for truth. The longer the silence lasted, the louder the movement became. In September 2020, Kentucky's Attorney General announced the outcome. No officers were charged for Breonna Taylor's death. One officer was indicted not for killing Breonna, but for endangering neighboring apartments. The announcement was met with immediate outrage. Protests erupted across the country. Later, the city of Louisville reached a $12 million settlement with Breonna's family, the largest in its history, along with police reforms. For some, it was acknowledgement. For others, it was not justice. Years later, federal civil rights charges would be brought against one former detective for falsifying information used to obtain the warrant. The legal process continued, slowly and painfully. For many Americans, the case reinforced a difficult reality. accountability is not guaranteed, even when the loss is undeniable. Breonna Taylor's story did not end in a courtroom. It lives in conversations about policing, reform, and the meaning of safety at home. Her name became a rallying cry not because she sought attention, but because her life was taken under circumstances that felt impossible to justify. She was not a suspect. She was not armed. She was not awake. She was home. For her family, remembrance is an act of love and resistance. For the public, it's a reminder that systems affect real lives and real homes. Breonna Taylor is remembered not only for how she died, but for what her life revealed. And that lesson continues long after the door closed and the sirens faded.